Okay, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Chamber Connect. I am Cecilia Harry. I'm Chief Economic Development Officer here at the Chamber and EDC, and we are so pleased to have you here and participating in today's program. In partnership with El Paso County Health, we created downloadable signs for businesses to display in their windows to increase customer and consumer confidence and let folks know that businesses are staying safe during this pandemic. You can download that sign from our website, and we'll provide a link here in the chat feature shortly. And a few more announcements. Next Thursday on May 21st, our Chamber Connect event is the first of a special two-part series focused on career and hiring strategy. During the first virtual event next week, a panel of experts will inform participants of resume writing myths and best practices, interview questions, and personal branding during a time when virtual has become our new norm. That panel will include a talent recruiter, a job coach, and other industry experts. And then the second event in the series on July 18th will be geared toward employers who want to attract and retain their best talent. And to register, you can visit our events page on our website. Some housekeeping items related to today's agenda. We will have the presentation with Dr. Anthony until about 12:20, and then we will move into Q&A. So you are welcome to post your questions in the chat at any time during this event, or you can chat directly to Emma Mitchell, who is on the Chamber and EDC team and is the host of this meeting. And we will go through Q&A and see where that takes us through the remainder of our time together. We're also going to record this presentation, and it will be available for sharing and viewing by the public next week. And then we will be doing a drawing for a winner for a special prize. So renaming yourself in the Zoom feature or function will help us identify the winner. So if you can click on yourselves in the Zoom program and change your name to reveal your name and your company name, that'll help us draw a winner so that you can be eligible for that special prize. And before I introduce our speaker, I want to give a shout out and a thank you to the sponsor of this Chamber Connect, BBSI. Thank you so much, BBSI, for making this possible. BBSI is a local high-touch professional employer organization advocating on behalf of business owners. The team of experts here in Colorado Springs are subject matter experts that provide consulting services to help navigate and propel small to medium-sized businesses through challenges in the areas of workers' compensation, risk management, human resources, payroll, talent acquisition, and business consulting. And they also help ensure compliance and mitigate risk and help companies scale for growth. We'll put this contact information in the chat as well, but you can reach out to Kevin Davis at BBSI for a zero pressure discussion on how they can assist you with your company needs. And now I would like to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Laura Anthony. Dr. Anthony, thank you so much for being with us today. Dr. Anthony is a child psychologist at the Children's Hospital Colorado in the Pediatric Mental Health Institute and an associate professor at the University of Colorado School of Medicine. Her work focuses on children with mental health and neurodevelopmental disabilities and their families. She has authored or co-authored over 40 publications and has received 18 research grants. And with the title of today's presentation, Know the Signs, Protecting Your Family's Mental Health During the Pandemic, you can see why Dr. Anthony is going to be an excellent person to talk to us about this. And I personally am looking forward to how to balance all of this better on the personal side of things, and then also what tools I can take back to my team to help support the folks that report to me and my coworkers with what they are likely trying to also balance on the personal side of things with all that's going on. So without further ado, Dr. Anthony, again, thank you for joining us. Please start off the event with your comments. Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for inviting me. I'm going to share. All right. So, this really should go without saying, but this is a highly unusual time for the first time in our lives, the crisis that we're responding to is a pandemic and not, say, a sudden weather event or a financial crisis. What we're responding to really during a pandemic, it touches everything. Everything is different. And now many of us are facing the financial crisis that comes along with the shutdown, the lockdown across the country, and it's really just adding to our stress. So while we're worrying about our health, as parents, we're also going to worry about our kids' health, our parents' health, our kids' academics, what's going to happen in the future. I'm hearing a much greater concern about that over the last couple of weeks as the state is starting to move towards partial reopening. I already talked about the financial difficulties, and then parents working from home. We're going to talk about that quite a bit because it's just so different. We also have both in ourselves and in our kids sometimes increased mood concerns, and that can really be characterized as grief. We have all lost a big part of our lives, and that makes us sad. We're coming upon the graduation time. My 8th grader is not going to be able to go to his continuation ceremony. It's going to be virtual tomorrow night. And 8th grade, it's not a huge deal, right? that he's able to graduate from 8th grade, but this kind of virtual ceremony coming on the heels of more than 2 months of never seeing his friends in person, it feels like an extra loss that is special. The social isolation that has really kind of dragged on can have some implications for us, but also especially for our kids. And the unstructured schedule is really a new thing. That is not something that we have been training our kids to deal with, and we haven't trained ourselves often to deal with it either. So there's very little that's untouched. So with all of this change, we are also seeing now increased conflict in families, and it's a stress reaction that is natural and is probably happening to all of us, right? And no matter how mentally healthy we are, it is hard not to express that stress. And so some of us our roles, even in our households, are getting very different now. So I work full time. I've got my 2 kids here. They've been doing online school, and I now have been kind of alone and trying to figure out how to get groceries and planning the meals. And I've kind of always done that, but it's a lot harder now. Though I must admit it's getting easier, and I highly recommend grocery delivery for all of you. But as we're doing more at home and we're doing work at home and our kids are doing school at home, like home is a whole different thing. For many of us, it used to be a respite from, daily stress. And now we kind of don't have that separate respite place. I apologize if you have seen this video, but for those of you who have been quarantining at home, and mostly working from home or not working from home, either way, this video, I got it from a friend on Facebook, and it spoke to me so deeply that I'm showing it to everybody every chance I can get. So if you've seen it, I apologize, but I watch it several times a week anyway.
I don't know what day of the week is. Yeah. Is it Monday? I don't know. Is it Tuesday? I don't know. Maybe Sunday? I don't know. Every day feels the same. Every day feels the same. I think it's Thursday. Shut your mouth. You don't feel the same. You don't feel the same. I don't know what to do. So I'll just eat some snacks, get real fat, and stay in my room.
I have been singing this to myself kind of obsessively. I'm getting a little bit better with what day of the week it is in general, but I still honestly do make mistakes. There was a couple of weeks ago, I woke up in the morning and was trying to figure out what day it was, and I started singing the song, and my husband made the mistake of saying, "It's Tuesday," and I said, "Shut your mouth, it all feels the same, it feels the same." He had no idea what I was talking about, so I did need to show the video to him to save our marriage. So this is unlike anything else, right, that we've ever experienced. So maybe if you go on a long vacation, you might sometimes lose track of what day it is. And that feels, at least when it happens to me, it feels like a real gift. Like it's wonderful. It's like, oh, I don't even have to think about, work or school or anything. I get to just totally be on vacation. And this is really not a vacation. A pandemic does not count as a vacation, right? Just to be clear. Sorry.
Thursday.
We don't need to hear it again. So sorry. So these are some of the most common feelings I've been getting back when I'm doing Zoom polls, when I'm doing presentations or trainings like this. And I think I drew these overlapping circles so closely because I do think there is so much overlap. And I'm asking the question to parents, what are you feeling lately? Because feelings are contagious, right? So if you're feeling stressed, it's really hard not to pass any of that stress on to your kids, right? But it happens the other way too. If your kids are really stressed about, say, the end of the school year, if you've got a high schooler who's taking online AP tests and that sort of thing, I'm hearing a lot from high schoolers. They're feeling a lot of stress right now, and that can be contagious back to you. And you can be feeling all of these things, the good things and the bad things, all at once or from moment to moment in any given day. We might find ourselves feeling more, and we might find ourselves feeling more labile, meaning things are changing more quickly. Our mood may be feeling less stable in the normative sense. So I've been asked this question really frequently. How can you balance working from home with being a full-time parent and maybe even a full-time teacher? And what do you think? Possible? It's not possible. And we're going to talk, and hopefully you can all share some things with each other, tips and tricks, but in general, you cannot be all of these things at once. You can have little parts of your day that's doing each of these things, maybe one, sometimes two at a time, but all of them at once is not possible. They are all full-time jobs, right? And one of the things that I think is really difficult, especially as some businesses are going back into reactivation, is kids don't have school and almost all of our daycares are closed. So how does a parent go into work, or even from home? How does a parent work all day if they've got young kids without any of the structures and supports that we've set up? So I've heard from a lot of parents that their businesses or their bosses are suggesting, well, how about hiring one of the high schoolers? And I think, I have known several parents to do that. part of the difficulty is they are still paying for daycare for the most part. So if their kid goes to public school, they're probably not paying for that. If their kid goes to private school, right now, they're probably still paying for it. If their kids are in daycare or any kind of after school programs, they're probably still paying for that too. But the school year is kind of ending now. So most parents back, in January started setting up what the summer is going to look like with summer camps. And I'm hearing a lot of cancellations of those going out this week too. So it's something like, as a parent, it's an impossible task, but as a boss, for those of you who are also bosses, just something to think about how we can make this a little bit less impossible for our workers. So in general, we think of, this is what working from home looks like, and it does sometimes, right? I see several of you who are looking super professional, and I don't see too many animals or cats or kids or trampolines or things in your backgrounds. But in reality, this is often what it looks like for working parents. So this is a real life psychologist, a colleague of mine at Children's, and she's terrific, and her kids are really, really too stinking cute. But this is how she works from home. She and her husband are both, professionals, and are, providing essential services. So she's obviously not seeing somebody in the hospital at the moment because her kids really couldn't be there. But because there's so much of that time when she's doing telehealth, this is what it looks like the rest of the time when she's trying to get her work done. I mean, they are really cute, right? It's great. But if you think about it from her perspective, it's probably a little bit, at least, hard to work that way. For those of us without kids, we may still think, oh, working from home will be less stressful. But then even without kids, you've got this tension between what it's like to work from home, and you think it's going to be easier. And those of us who've had some relief from our commutes, that is definitely true. But you also have this experience of home becomes work. I'm also hearing from many parents who are doing what she's doing in the middle of the night because that's when their kids are sleeping and that's when they can get their work done. Now, that happens to many of us at really busy times anyway, but during this time, if that's happening on a regular basis, that's really not sustainable, right? We all need our sleep to stay healthy and kind. It's very hard to be kind when you're not sleeping. So there are kind of these phases that people in pandemics or other situations like long-term war-torn countries that you go through. I think we're hearing less about this productivity porn, like on Facebook or Instagram, like, oh, I did all of these things and I'm writing a novel and, whatever. I think many people are kind of adjusting that that's really not going to be our standard expectation for everybody, although if you can do it, that's great. The first thing that you have to do in a situation like this is focus on security, food, family funding, right? We're talking about really the basics, health, getting people fed, having enough money to buy the food, that kind of thing. Some of us are past that phase, but then something can happen like layoffs at work or somebody gets sick and you get yanked right back to phase one, which is around security. And then if you've kind of got your base of security, like, I figured out how to order groceries online in a way that works, you can then start making this shift, right, to thinking about your work, your life, other things. This is a tweet that the author of this article included, day 1 of quarantine, I'm going to meditate and do body weight training. And by day 4, just pours ice cream into the pasta. We're on day 60 something. Don't even, just, if don't tell me. I'm having a little bit of a hard time with those big numbers. But I wonder what Troy Johnson is doing now, and how he's doing now, because once you get, this has been going on for so long. If he continues pouring the ice cream into the pasta, something else is probably going on by now, right? And then the final phase is kind of what people, I'm sure you've heard this, is the new normal. In the very beginning, when I first read this article, because it came out pretty soon after the lockdown, I couldn't even look at those words, new normal, because I couldn't imagine how we could make this our new normal and that everybody is going to be okay, right? I've shifted a little bit. I'm doing better, moving outside of the security realm and sort of able to more think about what this new normal is going to do. And what I find is the questions generally from parents have shifted from, how do I keep my kid and my family safe, to, is all of this time at home and out of school, is that going to cause, permanent damage to my kids? And I think that's a really important question. In general, the studies that have been done and people who have written a lot about this, they will note that this is a great time to kind of build resilience. If we see everybody in this together, doing what they know they need to do and shifting, flattening that curve, being kind by doing things like wearing a mask or helping your neighbor, those are really gifts of kindness that I would call out, that I do call out explicitly to kids, because it's hard to understand for them sometimes why they need to do that. And that is training your kids, or our whole generation of children and teenagers, to think about others, right? That we are not in this alone, and if we have this kind of importance of what our society is, we are able to work together and achieve really amazing things. And that's a valuable lesson that I think can come out of the pandemic, that can be difficult to get in other ways. So when do you need to start worrying about kids or teens? And as this has dragged on longer and longer, our concerns for kids with mental health problems really grows. So any kind of a history of mental health difficulties, or anybody who has experienced a significant loss during this time, or has had a parent who has been exposed to COVID, those things can really raise the risk for kids for mental health difficulties. And these other things listed here, irritability, worries, tantrums, changes to sleeping or eating, being alone more, having trouble thinking about the future, these are all signs of a completely normal reaction to a pandemic and a lockdown. And also they are signs of mental health problems. So when does it cross over? It really kind of crosses over when it goes on for a long time, and it's happening any of these things are happening most of the day, every day. And that especially your kids and your teens are not able to have fun. So if they used to have a good time in things, then and now, even though they have to do it from home, they're not enjoying it anymore. Now we're all getting bored kind of doing the same things over and over again, but if they can't ever experience joy or fun, then that I think is the kind of the first sign. Both of my kids who are quarantining with me, they're ages 14 and 20, they both had a couple of days where it was kind of predominantly this, right? These kinds of difficulties, but they came out of it. I'll talk about what to do to kind of get kids out of it in a minute. But so it's really kind of a sustained difficulty, if that makes sense. It's happening kind of all the time. I have also been asked a lot about what do you say to your kids? Because it's been going on now for 2 months, you've probably figured this out already. But a couple of tips are that you should just really kind of take those cues from your kids or your teens and gauge how much they want to know. If you have an early childhood kid who is asking lots and lots of really specific questions, if you don't give answers, then they're going to go on the internet, and that's not going to help mental health. It's much better for that information to come from parents. Try to be reassuring. Try not to share too much of your huge anxieties. So there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm worried. Can you spend a little bit of time with me? I'm having a hard day. Let's play a game together, do something fun so I can stop thinking about all the things I'm worried about. So there you're really modeling some coping strategies for them. One of the things I do recommend is limiting the news. Now this is a problem because your kids probably have more time for screens than ever. So you're going to have to talk to them about why they might want to limit. There are undercurrents of really negativity and scary messages out there that are not good for any of our mental health needs, or for kids. So you just want to kind of keep that in mind. Trying to fit into a schedule things like having fun as a family or social connections to their friends is really important, especially as we're now after 2 months of this. I have some specific tips here I'm the faculty mentor of our Youth Action Board, and they put this together pretty quickly after COVID. Many of them have had mental health struggles themselves, but they wanted to give some advice to parents about what to do with your kids. And some of these things are hard to do, like try not to snap at us. That's really great advice, but it can be really hard to do. If you fail in following that advice, give yourself a break, but do apologize to your kids and say, hey, I kind of yelled at you because I was upset about other stuff and I'm sorry. Is there anything we can do to, kind of make up for that? I think one of the things that has been really difficult with online school is that I have some kids who are really, some patients who are really resistant to participating in the online school. And our Youth Action Board leaders, they're all high schoolers, said that really punishment for school or grades at this time is really, really tough for them. Because they're switching to a whole new school kind of model, it's a lot to really expect some of the same performance that they had before. Now, for my 8th grader school, they switched this last quarter to pass-fail, which was a real gift. But there are many schools who are doing absolutely nothing like that. I heard of a 1st grader who was getting a recorder test a couple of weeks ago, like, the recorder, the music thing. Why do you need to have a virtual recorder test? It's just, That's kind of an unreasonable expectation. And for the kids who really want to do it, it's great, right? Show the teacher how much they've learned, but to make it a graded sort of test seems a little bit unfair to me. One of the other things that the Youth Action Board suggested is to check in with your kids frequently. And these are kind of the scripts that they provided for that. How are you feeling? What's taking up your headspace? What did you do that made you feel good? Is there anything you're looking forward to? What could you do today that is going to make you feel good, or are you grateful for anything? So they're not necessarily all negatively worded or focused on the bad feelings, but also on the good feelings. We need to express our bad feelings, but we also need to have some good stuff either to look forward to, or at least to have just a little bit of fun during this time. All right, many of you have probably seen this, but in case you haven't, or just because we need it right now, we're going to take a deep breath with Elmo's dad.
Hey there, it's me, Louie. I just wanted to say.
Can you help Elmo make a pillow fort,
Just a
please?
second, Elmo. I'll be right there, son. It is wonderful to get to spend so much time with our children, but can also be a bit overwhelming. But I just wanted to say, parents, you are doing an amazing job. Remember, though, it's important to take some time for yourself. Take care of you. You can listen to your favorite song, stretch, or just take a moment to breathe. Come on, breathe with me right now. Huh? Take a slow, deep breath in, and then breathe out. It feels good, huh? We are all doing the best we can, and that is okay. No, it's better than okay. It's okay, son. I'm coming. Looks like I have to go. Time to make a pillow fort. You hang in there and keep up the great work.
Caring for each other.
So tagging on to what Elmo's dad said, I also like to pass on this virtual get out of guilt free card. I think, parents are really, really worried about how they're going to function, how they functioned for the last 2 months, and how they're going to function for the next few. I just want to remind you all, parents, that this is a, once every 100 years time. And we're asking you to do things that you never were prepared to do. And so if you're doing your best, most of us, we're just doing our best. That's all we can do, right? We can't solve all of these problems with our kids and with schooling and work. We can't do everything. So do your best and try not to feel guilty. We feel guilt. Guilt is a really important emotion. Guilt, shame, really important because it keeps you from doing stuff wrong. But none of us here, most likely, caused this pandemic, right? So it's not your fault. So you can't feel guilty about it, right? It's not going to motivate you to do something really much better because you're already doing your best. So if I could, I would write it for you on a Post-it note or hand you out a card, but I can't do that. So take a mental picture, take a picture with your phone, and just remind yourselves frequently that guilt is not going to be helpful in this situation. One of the things that I would like to do now is, if anybody has any tips or tricks that have been working for them in terms of parenting or for the parents that they know. It's great to share that because we're all struggling. I've heard from several parents that their kids are able to, or better able to entertain themselves now because of, working from home. And once they finish with school, they're embarking on more independent play or things that they can do on their own because the parents aren't so available, which that's a great thing. That's never gonna hurt. And then I also have been hearing about parents saying, I can't help you now because I'm on a Zoom meeting. So you've got to figure this out on your own, right? And I think that also, our lives have been really, really busy up till now, and now they're just as busy, but a very different kind of busy. I think many of us as parents are finding that when we give our kids the space, they can actually form a lot more independence, and that's going to be really good for them. So say you've got somebody, a middle schooler or a high schooler who's going to go off to college, being able to balance screen time, being able to solve problems themselves, being able to cook or do laundry, all of those things are going to be really helpful when they launch from your house to go into the military or job or college, right? Figuring that out now during this time is a pretty low stakes time because they're going to be all right? Because they've got parents around. So when they launch, that's a higher stakes time. So there can be a real advantage to getting some of that worked out now, some of those skills really developed now. So maybe if you can include in your chat what has been working for you that you want to share with others. And then after that, I think we can take general questions. And here are just a couple of resources that can be helpful. Calm is really nice. There's also some virtual calming rooms, which can be helpful for kids to, look at a waterfall or a aquarium with the fish. But again, many of you have probably already found most of these resources, but I just want you to know that they're available. I'm going to stop sharing and turn it back over. Emma, you're going to help me with the chat.
Yeah. Thank you, Laura. This was a really good presentation, and we are recording this, so I'll make sure everybody gets a copy of it or the link to the YouTube once it's up. Feel free to share that with anyone else you feel that could benefit. So first, Dr. Laura, would you please give me a number, a 2-digit number, so we can do the raffle?
2 digits going all the way up to 100?
Oh gosh, that's a lot.
Okay.
Stephanie's gonna count it for me, so she might make a large number.
Okay, how about 18?
Okay, perfect. And then for anybody who's hasn't yet, if you could please rename yourself. So just go to the corner where your picture is and click on the 3 dots and click rename and just put your name and your company name in there. So one question that I actually had was, I've seen a lot of people posting and things going viral about their kids doing nice things for others, which is really wonderful. But does that have any impact on the kid? I don't know how to say this in like a nice way, but pretty much I'm wondering, is there a way that this could maybe affect a kid to say, well, I'll only do something nice if I get attention for doing it? Or is that an issue at all? Or is that just a really good encouraging to continue to do nice things for people? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't tend to worry much about kids anybody doing nice things for attention, as long as they're really doing nice things. If you know what I mean. It's a lot better than doing mean things for attention. But I do like those hidden acts of kindness that are things that nobody's going to know about. And so that's something I can tell you, as a parent, that I do frequently with my kids. Just little things where you're in a moment and you can do something nice for somebody else and you're not ever going to get any recognition for it. And it can be really like 3-second things, like really, really short, picking up a piece of trash or something while you're on a walk, or it can be bigger things, leaving secret present at somebody's door with an encouraging message or something, or decorating their sidewalk with chalk, or really simple things. I do think it is nice if we can get kids in the habit of doing that. Looking around for things you can do to contribute to society, help somebody out, just be nice, just to be nice. There's a fair amount of evidence that being nice is actually better for the person who's the giver. It's better for the giver, sometimes even than the receiver. So it really builds things like a sense of agency, a sense of purpose in the world. And, I feel like you can tell kids even really little things can make a difference.
Wonderful. Thank you for answering that really oddly framed question I gave you. So I have another question here from Andrea. She is our communication specialist. She was wondering, she asked me, could I ask you how to frame conversations about how to handle the ongoing uncertainty, like summer activities are on hold, fall school year is TBD. How do we best handle those conversations without instilling fear?
Yeah. It's hard. We are really facing the unknown and the unexpected. And I would kind of put some scripts around this with kids or spouses or, and ourselves, that, handling the unexpected is really hard. Handling the unknown or unpredictability is also really hard. If any of you are really good at that, I'd love to hear your ideas because it is difficult. My college student, he was studying in Tanzania for a semester abroad, and very suddenly we had to get him out of Africa. So he's gone through several stages of adjustment about that. He's been back for 5 weeks now or so. But now his questions are, well, how am I going to get a job for the summer? And am I going to have to go to online school in the fall? And all I can say is, I don't know. I can provide some ideas about jobs because I've been hearing from other youth that I work with who's hiring. But it is really difficult to sit with uncertainty. So I would share in that with your kids and say that it's hard for you too. And that sometimes we just have to tolerate this kind of distress. I think the hardest thing is to convey that everything's going to be okay, but it's not going to be the same, right? Maybe sometimes I will say things to my patients like, people are working really hard to figure out the best way to keep you safe, but also to give you the best education that they can. They're already working on that now. And I know that they are, our schools are, but, we now know we can have a lockdown at any time. if there's another huge outbreak, we know what happens, right? It's not a very satisfying answer. I've got no magic wand, sorry.
Yeah, well, I think that your answer was better than nothing.
Only by a little bit.
She also asked, what's the best way to handle things when kids do act out or act impulsive right now?
Yeah, so it really is difficult. So you parents are kind of caught in between wanting to be understanding, this is very stressful for kids and we're going to see more behavior. And particularly, I don't know if this is true of you all, but particularly around online school for some kids, particularly the younger kids or the kids with special needs, like, whoa, it just doesn't work, honestly. It just really doesn't work. So I feel like where there's a really unrealistic expectation, and a kid is reacting to that unrealistic, impossible situation, I feel like it's not fair to discipline, right? But if that reaction includes punching your brother in the nose, then you have to have a consequence, right? And kids actually really need that structure and consistency. And I would say, you know, as long as you have kind of established discipline practices in your house that have been working, you want to generally use those same ones for expectations of behavior and what the consequences are. That makes sense.
Yes, it does. Derek, you had a question you wanted to ask. I'm going to unmute you now. Okay.
Yep. Thanks, Laura. This has been great. So I have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old, and among our many struggles, our greatest one right now is with weather getting nicer. We have been really strictly quarantining, but I live in a neighborhood that is not allowed to have fences, and we have 18 kids under 8 years old living within 3 houses of us. So it's literally like a zombie apocalypse. They're like crawling on our house, getting in. You know, the kids can't go outside without, you know, the distance. We've really reinforced it, but I mean, there's no way you can tell a 6-year-old to, you know, avoid the other 5, you know, kids under 6 that are climbing on top of them. And, you know, everybody in our neighborhood doesn't have the same, you know, needs that we do based on, you know, a compromised immunity, not in my immediate family, but with my mother. And I mean, every hour is a struggle right now. So do you have any advice on something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it is tough. Our kids are, you know, they're sometimes literally bouncing off the walls, right? And we can't blame them. I mean, sometimes I kind of feel like that too. You know, the younger the kids are, the harder it is to convey the need for social distancing and for masks. Will your kids wear masks?
They will, but you know, even when they go outside, they're, you know, slipping off, and they'll be the only ones. And I mean, most of the kid, you know, 16 of the 18 are under 6 years old. So, I mean, it's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. So the one thing I can tell you kind of from infection control and epidemiological standpoint is that outside is way, way, way better than inside, right? So the weather getting nicer is a gift to us and not to the virus, which is great. So I would suggest not having the 18 kids in your house under any circumstances.
Nobody's going to anybody's houses in my world.
Right. So at least you have outside. And if you're having trouble, I would still ask your kids, if you have somebody, like for grandma's sake, you need to wear a mask. That's just all there is to it. And then you can train your kids that when they come in the door, the first thing they do is you help them take off the mask in a way that's safe, don't touch the front, and they wash their hands and their face, right? And if they do that, the risk goes way down if they do all of those things. No eating outside with the friends, which is hard, because then you're really getting close contact. Kids are used to sharing drinks. I mean, right? We've taught our kids to be generous, and now you've got to teach our kids you can't be generous, right? You've got to keep your drinks and things to yourself. So that really does help a lot if you know that you can do this thing, right? That is more going to offer more protection. If you can also train your kids while they're out playing not to touch their nose, which is what a mask really, really helps with, or eyes, then that's like extra credit helpful.
Well, and sorry to hijack this here, but one of the things is, I'm always looking out the window and yelling, distance, distance. And, I would be annoyed by myself if I was them. So,
yeah. So really, if they're outside, especially if it's a sunny day, right? The risk is much lower. Now, the farther away they are, the better. If there's any way you can come up with games where they're doing things far apart, right, without needing to be next to each other, that's really great. But you've got to, it takes a lot of monitoring. And if you're the only parent who's doing the monitoring, that's really hard. So my last little trick for you, and I don't think you're hijacking this conversation, because I think a whole lot of parents have these exact same questions. So the last thing I would say is you could try to train your kids to play the opposite of tag. So instead of touch, if they are like, magnets, as a kid comes near them, if they back up, and if you could do it where you go out or secretly observe them, and then you make up a name for the game, like not tag, and you say to your 6-year-old, you just won 10 points at not tag, right? That means you get whatever, right? You determine whatever it is that your kid can get. Then you're praising your kid for what they can control and what they can do, and making it positive instead of yelling distance, which is also an okay thing to do. It's just exhausting for you. Does that make sense? Do you understand how not tag would work?
Yeah, no, that's an awesome idea. I like it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eric, for asking that. We have one more question. Do you have recommendations to get telehealth started if you've never done it before, but you have an issue with your kids? Like, how do you get your kids to do it or anything like that?
Yeah, so from a parent perspective, is that, yeah. So I've been doing a lot of telehealth. Obviously, I haven't been seeing kids until yesterday in person, and I still saw 3 through telehealth and only 2 in person. The difficult thing is it does not quite work the same as in person. It just takes more effort, and it takes more effort for your kids to process also what's going on, whether that's virtual learning or it's telehealth. So I think, like for me, for doing therapy, those usually are, 45 or 50-minute time slots. For younger kids or for older, really agitated adolescents, that is too long online. They just have a hard time maintaining it. But then for some kids, I have another patient who is a YouTuber, and he considers that his, full-time job, and school is kind of, down here on the side. For him, he can do the whole hour. It's hard to even get him off. And he knows how to get right to content. Like, he knows exactly how to work. And our sessions are really pretty much indistinguishable from our in-person sessions. I can tell you, though, when you move from telehealth to in-person, one of the difficulties is that, kids are asked to then wear masks, which can be more uncomfortable than talking to a doctor or somebody through the screen. And the professional will also definitely have on a mask. So just keep in mind that even in person may not be totally an answer for a while when things can really, really go back to normal.